You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Tess Brigham. Why knowing your issues may not be enough to get better results. Welcome, ladies, to Life Check Yourself. I'm super excited about our conversation today. I have offspring who are Millennials and Gen Z. I just returned from a retreat coaching about 20-some of our clients, a lot of them who are dealing with relationships with their own adult children. They are talking about their own fucked up shit with their parents. And so I brought Tess Brigham here today, who has been dubbed the Millennial Therapist by CNBC. She's an expert psychotherapist. She's a certified life coach. She's a public speaker. And she actually specializes in helping 20-somethings discover their unique life path in order to go out in the world and make a damn impact. So I'm super excited to have you on here. And talk about this. So I'm just curious, first of all, like, if you were going to come and tell me, like, the State of the Union, you know, like, like, my daughter is 20. My 20-year-old just called me. She's in Cabo, spring break, as one does in college, right?
Nice.
And I'm very lucky. I talked to her and her friends. I spoke at her sorority about dating relationships. And they FaceTime me, and they were like, do you think we look too slutty to go to a booze cruise? Right? Like, they're literally confused about, like, are we being, like, sensual and feminine, or are we going to put out a message that doesn't support, you know, our high value that we have for ourselves? And I literally think that if we don't deal with this stuff, it just goes on forever, because you know, my 50-year-old ladies asked me the same version of the same question. So what's the State of the Union? What's going on with Millennials and Gen Zs?
Well, a lot is going on. I mean, as we know, you know, it's funny because I've been working primarily with young adults for over 10 years. I've been working with people for close to 20, but just this population. And so when I first started out, you know, millennials are in a very different space. So I have to think about, like, the two generations are a bit different in the sense that I think the State of the Union for millennials is, you know, yet again, I feel like they've been put in this really tough predicament of, you know, what's happened with the pandemic. I mean, this is the generation that was, you know, graduated college during the 2008, 2009, right? Recession crash. And you know, here they are probably feeling like, okay, I'm on the right track. And then the pandemic hits, and a lot of them have young children. And, you know, so, and, you know, with home prices and everything that's going on, I mean, you can see if you read anything on the web about, it's almost like millennials have just thrown their hands up and said, I'm not going to be able to afford a house.
Right.
Or I'm not going to be able to. It's almost like they've sort of like said, okay, I give up. I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to go and make it, you know, enjoy my life. And then I see these Gen Zers who are, you know, just like with your daughter, right, coming of age during the pandemic, missing huge, you know, milestones of graduations and all of those kinds of things because of the pandemic. And here we are 2 years afterwards. And, you know, we don't really spend a lot of time talking about or considering how all of these life events, all of these things really impact young people. So I always say it is so much harder to be a young person in the world that we live in today than it ever was for, you know, for me. I think obviously some things have gotten a lot better, obviously around sexuality and, you know, speaking up and consent, like all of these levels of things. But just the day-to-day of being a young adult it's rough.
Well, it's like
really, really hard.
I was reading something in this, I think it's called Breaking the Chains by Dr. Sheldon Gardner, and he talks about how our, negative programming starts. Like the example he uses is that if you asked a 3-year-old like to move a couch, right? Like it would be overwhelming, right? Because they wouldn't feel capable, right? It's like too big for them to process. Right. And so that 3-year-old was like, there's something wrong with me. I can't do this. Like, if I move the couch, people will love me. Right. And I think that if you look at the challenges of the pandemic and social media and all those things, do you think that, their prefrontal cortex in some case, hasn't yet been formed, but they're having to deal with these massive challenges that require a lot of emotional range and capacity?
And I think the biggest part, and I think what gets young adults feeling that overwhelm is they feel like they need to figure it all out right here, right now, and they need to get it right now, that there is no time to waste, that I can't get it wrong in the future. So that belief that I have to know by the time I graduated college, right? I have to know exactly what I want, who I am, everything. I have to make all these decisions and get them set up into place and know exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life. And if I don't figure this out now, then I've failed in some way, shape, or form. So what happens is you get a lot of really, really anxious young people, either making decision after decision after decision, not even thinking about it, or those, and I see this a lot in my own, as both a therapist and as a coach, just stuck. They get so overwhelmed, right? When there's so many choices, so many options, the overwhelm gets so big that they just end up doing nothing, right? Like just staying in a job. Okay, I'm going to stay in this job. I don't know what else I want to do. So I'm just going to stay in this job until I know what it is that I want to do, or stay in this relationship, or stay in this apartment, whatever it is, versus pushing themselves.
Which is so crazy, because if you flash forward to a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, right, who got a divorce or has been in that career for 20 years going I never figured out what I wanted to be when I grow up. What is it that we can do, whatever age we are, to start to unstick ourselves, even though we've all been through 2 years of crazy?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really about, and I have this expression, it's like you're now, like now. I'm in a Californianer. Yeah. So it really does start with just stopping for a second and looking at your life right now. And really assessing, just as you would, anything else. If you went into a failing business, they would assess, where are you at today, right? So you would look at yourself and you look at your life right now and ask yourself, what do I like? What don't I like? What's working for me? What's not? What makes me happy, right? Just start to assess some of these things, and then begin to think about, picking an area of your life that you're not working for you, and then starting to make some, and they don't even need to be permanent decisions. It's more about exploring. What happens is that the sections that people miss are this, is they feel like I want to change careers, but I need to know what the job is that I'm going to have 20 years from now in order to know what the next step is today. And it's a little bit of you don't need to know any of that. What you need to do is explore, take a class, chat with people who are in an industry that sounds interesting to you, push yourself to look and see what else is out there, gain some new skills, start talking to people, that kind of thing. What I see with my clients is that they don't even do a little bit of the exploration or research around what do I like, what sounds interesting to me, because they get so stuck on, I need to know what this end goal is, because right, there's been, and I blame technology for this.
Okay, I want to hear about this. Tell me more.
So the thing about technology is, number one, is that because we've made all these advances, which is great. This is how you and I are talking right now, right? All of this has been wonderful. But the flip side of it is that technology has made it so that we really don't know how things should. We don't really have a sense of how long things do take. right?
Yeah.
We're competing with machines constantly. Like, this machine can do this. And we really only highlight the stories of the big fast takeoff, startup tech. And we really, really focus on all the ways that we can be most productive and, be up at 5 a.m. and doing this and doing that, right? We've become obsessed with, I think, competing with the machines that rule our lives. And we have an expectation because these machines work so fast that we should work so fast. So people are young adults are entering into the world thinking like, okay, I have to, go. That with social media, which has made it really hard for you to have a real solid sense of who what's a good timeline for anything, right? Social media shows you the highlights of everybody's lives. They show you so many people that are, half your age, successful and making all this money and on yachts and doing this and doing that. And so the combination of those two things, people enter into, let's say post-college years, and they're they're already feeling like I'm behind. And in order for me to be, always working and moving it, I have to be like hashtag hustling constantly and competing with these machines. So here we are, always feeling like we're behind or we're missing something or we're failing in some way, shape, or form. And I think all of that creates so much, right? That creates the anxiety and the feeling of, oh, well, I can't do any of that, so I won't even start. Like, that seems so overwhelming. It's talking about the 3-year-old in the couch, right?
Yes.
Like, I cannot pick up this couch. And so how I won't even do it. I'll just sit here and fret about it. And then what happens is, and I see this a lot with my clients that are, 25, 26, 27, where they haven't done anything about it. And now they're in this job, now they're 5 years into the job and they're really unhappy. And the panic is starting to set in. And I don't know if you see this with your own kids, but my clients really use the age 30 as this marker.
Yes.
Of like, we got to figure everything out. Everything in my life needs to be settled. I need to be on a good trajectory by 30 or somehow I failed. And so, right. And that panic sets in.
Yeah. It's so funny. My one daughter is 26 and she feels like she and her job is still remote, and she's like, I need to take advantage. I need to go I need to travel. I need this because like I'm getting old and I have to do this because if I want to get a relationship and I want kids, I have to do this, and my career I have to do. And I'm like, whoa, like what you're describing is exactly that situation. And so I am really feeling blessed because I have been teaching my kids to talk about their feelings and sort of, deal with a lot of these emotions that they have, and yet still they really get anxious and they still struggle. So what do we do? Like, how do we, and you and I were talking about this before we went on live, but like, what do we do about starting to create those emotional literacy skills that are just as important as making the money, getting the picture on Instagram, like all those external things that they think will bring them happiness that they ultimately are figuring out that it's not.
Yeah. Well, I think, so are you talking about in terms of the individual themselves or the parent?
I'm thinking about the individual themselves. For our young listeners, what do they can do for themselves? And then we'll talk about how you can help your young adult children.
Sure. Okay. So if it's you that's going through this, I think that the first piece of it is to really, to first listen to everything that we're saying and let go, try as best you can to let go of these myths, let go of the time frame, let go of, what your assumptions are of what you should be doing, and really start to remember the mantra of this is my path, this is my pace, this is how I'm going to do it. This is your life and only you have to live it. So you need to start doing things that are going to make you happy. And so just slow yourself down a little bit, like just give yourself permission almost. And I usually encourage my clients to spend a little time away from social media, give yourself a bit of a social media break or limit it to, 20 minutes a day. And you set a timer, you can scroll through Instagram for 20 minutes and then you're done. But give yourself a break, because that all the social media stuff, anybody in your life that you feel like is confusing you or making you anxious, whether it's a parent or a friend or whomever it is, like take a little break from them, give yourself a little bit of a minor retreat for a while.
Yeah.
Get yourself into a different headspace, and then do exactly what I'm saying, which is take an assessment of your life. Take this assessment of like, what's working, what's not working, what do I need more of, what do I need less of, what do I like, what don't I like, what do I know for sure, what don't I know for sure. Like really try to get a sense of it and sort of see this process as, you're an explorer. You're gathering information. And from there, start to think about ways like, how can I get more information about, jobs and things? Interesting jobs, different ideas, like how, thinking about that, like, what does that look like? Or, if you want to have a relationship, like, what is it that I need to start doing if I want to, get myself out into the world more? And I think it really starts with just assessing where you are today, and then just asking yourself these questions of like, what do I need? What makes me happy? What do I need more of? And what makes me feel, sad or anxious or whatever these other pieces are. So that's one part of it.
I love, well, that was so juicy. I want to ask you some more stuff before we talk about their damn parents. So it sounds like what you're saying, which is, I think, kind of mind blowing, is that, and maybe I'm wrong, but like that they get so focused, and all of us do, whatever our generation, like on the achieving or the goal or the timeline or the lack of time, that we we're going so fast, we're not thinking, what do I actually like? We're trying to like cookie cutter ourselves into what society says we're supposed to like or do. So we need to pause and be like, wait, who am I? What do I like? What's right for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that obviously, right, like what's happened is that when you're growing up and when you're younger, right, and you're thinking about your life post high school, post college, whatever it looks like, right, your future can be whatever you imagine it to be in your mind. So what happens is once people graduate from school and they're out in the working world, nobody's fantasy is going to look that good. Right? Like your life can never be what your fantasy is. And what happens is that it's almost like, okay, it's okay to think about what it is that you want and what interests you or not, but somehow, right, once you declare your major in college, you don't get a choice anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? You don't even get to decide. So we allow, we should stop asking kids, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like that alone should be the worst question. How do you want to do, what that part is making a lot of people, especially more anxious kids, crazy. So stop. But the other part of it too is we allow kids to take different classes and learn different things and explore different things to see, right, what they get in touch with. And somehow once we are in college, we just, and we declare that major, we start into the working world, we just stop. And that's the piece of it, is you have to stop and ask yourself, like, what makes me happy? And if you don't know, start doing things that you think might make you happy and see if they do. Because work is, and relationships are, right? You can have the most amazing job, you can have the most amazing title, and you can make tons of money. But if you don't like what you do day in, day out every day, it's going to be a miserable job. And that's the piece that we spend so much time talking about. Oh, you want to be a lawyer? Okay, so this is what lawyers do, and you'll make this much and you'll have this title. That should make you happy. Versus starting with, well, what do I like? What makes me happy? And then what can fit into that?
Oh, I love that so much. Okay, so we got a little like, don't ask your adult kids, what are you doing? What is your career? Why are you single? Why, are you sure that's a good job? Do you think that'll get, can you afford that apartment with that salary? What other things do parents and well-meaning loved ones do when they are talking to young adults?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of times, and a lot of parents probably do, they know their kids very well, and they might have what they think is a plan that they think would be perfect for their kid. But, as a parent that your child's got to figure this out on their own. So what I always encourage parents to do is ask a lot of questions, don't make a lot of statements. Meaning, so what are you going to do about that? Like, oh, that's interesting. And you can use it in a lot of different ways. So one of the issues that a lot of parents would come to me with is, okay, my kid's 25 and they're calling me 3 or 4 times a day about everything. Like everything. Like every time they have a problem, they're coming to me. Every time they need something that, and I don't want to be their therapist or their sounding board, And so that is one thing is as the role of a parent, it's very easy to get stuck in this headspace of always feeling like I got to solve my kids' problems. I got to be the voice of reason. I've got to go in there. And really, you want to teach your child how to solve their own problems. And if you're someone who's always solving their problems, you need to stop and just ask questions. Let them get to their own conclusions. And it's the same for, if you have a kid who's really not trying to figure out career-wise or where they want to live, and they're really up and down, like, just when your child comes to you and says, oh, I'm thinking about moving to Paris, instead of just going right there of like, how are you going to make that happen? You can't just go there. Okay. What are you thinking there? What does that look like? And just asking questions around, so do you think you would want to go with a job, or are you just going to go to travel, right? Your kid, I think that parents feel this need of like, oh God, I got to stop them right now. It's like, well, what are the chances that they're going to get it together? They haven't gotten it, they're not going to get it together to go to France in a short amount of time. Like, you're going to have plenty of notice if it's going to happen. Like, just let them work out some of the things that they're thinking about or what's happening, and don't panic. Just wait and see what happens. Wait and see what it is. And then the other thing is that, everyone has different relationships with their kids. I think that obviously, sons are very different than daughters. And I hear this a lot where the daughters are very communicative and they'll call home and they talk a lot, and the sons not so much.
Right.
So I get some parents of boys. I have a boy myself, where they'll come to me and they say, well, I've been sending him like all of these, I'm so worried, and I keep sending him job things and courses he can take and this and that, but he never calls me back, or I get one-word answers. And I think that in that case, that's a little bit of, if you're wanting to, have a different kind of relationship with your child, then your kid doesn't want to talk to you if they know that all of the questions are going to be like, did you take that class I suggested? Are you, did you apply to those 5 jobs I gave you? Did you do this? Right. So stop sending them things that you see. Right. Stop sending them courses you think they should take, or jobs they think are interesting, or any of that. None of that. If they let them figure it out, they know how to find it. And if they're interested, they will do it themselves. But you want to cultivate a relationship where they want to pick up the phone and call you or talk to you. And if you are, hey, how's it going? Oh, that's what's happening. Well, tell me more about this. Oh, interesting. Versus, well, did you get a job yet? What's happening? Oh my God, how are you going to pay your rent? What does that look like? Right? Like, you really just have to think about, who do you want to pick up the phone and talk to? So you need to create that atmosphere for your kid, because we know this, right? Where if you keep the lines of with teenagers, if you keep the lines of communication open, if you, have boundaries and you respect your child, and if you create that relationship with them, when things, big, scary things that you worry about happen, your kid will come to you. They will talk to you. If they feel like you are a safe person to talk to, they will talk to you about it. And this is one thing that's very different about these generations, right? Is that, Gen Zers and millennials are much closer to their parents. They do have these tighter, what we're seeing a lot more is tighter relationships with their parents, which I think has been one thing that's been really, really good. Is I think you hear a lot more these days of kids talking to their parents a lot, and confiding in them and sharing their lives with them. But you have to think about it. If you want more from that kid, what do you think your kid, what do you think they need from you? Like, what kind of conversations do you think they want to be involved in? And I'm sure it's not about like job stuff. If I will say for parents, this is all like if your child is supporting themselves.
Right.
If you have a child that you are supporting and they are living in your home, then that's a bit of a different situation.
Right.
That's a totally different thing where you have to, you want to approach it from some similar things, but that's a little different because you're financially invested.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, because I'm super fascinated about, because, our roots are in dating and relationship. What is different, with Gen Z? I saw a report that said that Gen Zers, they hook up and then they date someone, right? They're not like we would do where you date someone and then you hook up. And I'm thinking the millennials are still dating. I'm not sure what is going on right now with those two generations, and how does that impact the future of like human relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I get very, it does make me nervous to see how little, especially my millennial clients and my Gen Zers, like how little they will use the phone.
Yeah.
Because it's the funniest thing was, when I first started started working with young people, I would email them and never hear back. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll text them, which it was kind of a big no-no in the therapy world. Like so much of this stuff is new, right? Like, so that was the only way I could get a hold of them. Like, God forbid I emailed them.
Now you have to Snapchat them.
Yeah. If I could even figure out Snapchat. So I think that one thing is, I think that dating has in some parts of dating, I think are a lot easier. And I think some parts are a lot harder. I think that what is really hard about the apps is that being on the apps is that, right? Like the amount of time and energy you have to waste doing this back and forth with someone, when we all know, right? Anthropologists confirm this. We know this. You don't know if you're going to be attracted to someone or if there's any there until you're in the exact same room. And I think that's the part that I feel for all my young clients, which is what's happening a lot now is people aren't, they're still meeting in real life, but not as much as they should be.
Yeah.
Right. People use apps so much for relationships that when they are out in the world, they're not looking up and looking around and seeing, who here looks interesting to me? Who am I attracted to? Who sparks my interest? They're also focused on, well, this isn't for dating, the phone is for dating, right? This app is for dating.
Right.
And I see so much of my clients just going on date after date after date when really all you needed to do was get in a room with them for a minute and a half to know if there was any spark, right? Like that's the part that's really hard, is that the dating apps, it's a screening, but it's got nothing to do with whether or not this is going to work or not. I definitely think that you're absolutely right. Like sex and relationships and how all of that works is very different, though. I think that, I do have a lot of, especially female clients that really do want, they want that more traditional, like someone asking them out on a date. They want that.
They do want that. Like, for sure. They just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And I think that what's happened now is we have this whole generation of young men that have no idea what it takes to pick up a phone and call someone.
Absolutely. And then you add in like the masks, right? Like my daughter would go to the gym and she'd be like, I think this boy was looking at me. I think he's cute, but I literally have no idea. So never mind. Right? Like I just saw some eyeballs kind of, we did eye ping pong and then like, but I don't want to risk it. So I'm hoping, so as our masks come off, hopefully, do you think that they'll get back to that, we will go back, or do you think that between social media and apps that this is something that's going to be here to stay?
I think it's here to stay. I think that, I think it's here to stay, though. It always makes me laugh because I see, right, I spent the 20s for me were the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And so I hear all this 90s music now and, all of this stuff, this quote unquote nostalgia. And I do think that there may be this kind of novelty at some point where young people are like, I'm not going to use apps anymore. Like we're all about in person, events.
God,
Then,
please.
this is the new way, is the in-person way. So I could see that switching it up, but phones, technology, like all of the ways in which we've designed our lives right now, this isn't going away.
Yeah.
It isn't. We're just going to keep moving to this more efficient. And what the pandemic has done is it's isolated us. We were isolated before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest issue right now, which is it's just once upon a time, someone would get married and your family lived nearby and their family lived nearby, and you had this whole community of people, and you had your friends, and you had your church, and you had, whatever it was that made up your life. And now, when it comes to relationships and dating, what's so hard is that people are living much more isolated lives, far away from their families. All their friends have scattered across the country after school. And then, you're really looking at your partner for everything. Like, you need to be my best friend and, my confidant and my therapist and my life coach and right. Like, you have to be, we're really looking at relationships. Like, you're everything to me now. And I think that part's really hard. And I think the pandemic has made it even, right. For more isolated. So that's what makes me really nervous about young people, is that they're much more separated, and the way technology has worked and what's happening is we are not forcing people enough, especially young people, to do some of these more, get on the phone and call someone and interact in person and all of that. They need that. And that the interacting and calling people, whether it's a friend, like all of that is preparing you for relationships, preparing you for the rest of it.
Yeah. So let's end kind of by talking about this. I'm writing this article about emotional intelligence for young people. And I'm really curious about what you think about this, because on one hand, I love that you're saying, like, young people today are talking to their parents and confiding to their parents more than ever. My question to you is, do they have like emotional intelligence? Are they, and we talk about Brene Brown's new book, and she's talking about, there's 87 emotions, but people can only name 3. Like, are they talking, but yet they're still sort of like emotionally unavailable? They're not feeling their feelings. They're just using the phone to numb. They're not setting boundaries. They're avoiding conflict. Like, is that happening at the same time? Like, or is our emotional intelligence of our young people increasing, in your opinion?
I believe that emotional intelligence we are creating younger people with more emotional intelligence. And this has always been what surprised me, is a lot of clients would come to me, and I was always amazed, which is why I got into coaching to begin with, which was they would come to me when I was a therapist, and I was amazed by how much they really understood their feelings. Because, right, we're seeing this now. Young people are not afraid to go to therapy. They're not afraid to talk about going to therapy. They're seeking therapy and coaching and mental health. Like, they're much more open and honest about it. They're much more wanting it and needing it. And being open about that piece of it, which I think is great. So I think that when they walk, when they're working with someone like myself, they really do have an understanding of, these are my feelings. This is what's happening. This is what's triggering me. They know all the buzzwords. They know, like, I need to set boundaries. The problem is they have the intelligence of it. The problem is that they're not quite sure. Part of it is they don't know quite for themselves, because they don't know quite themselves very well, right? And a big part of emotional intelligence is understanding yourself. So it's one thing to understand, right, this is my emotion, but versus how does this emotion play into my life? But I also think that one thing that's happened is, because there is so much white noise out in the world, right? Because they're like, you can Google anything you want. You can, any problem that you have, just go on Instagram. Someone's talking about it. Right. Because there's just too much information. And what I find is that I get a lot of clients who, they have the awareness, but they're so overwhelmed by the amount of information, and there's a lot of misinformation. So it's a lot of, like, they're coming to me with, like, well, that part's true, but this part over here isn't quite right. And, this doesn't really pertain to you. And you're worrying about something that, hasn't happened to you yet over here. Like, it's there, but it's just a bit jumbled, I will say. And so I think the second part of this is that it's about helping young adults gain more of that emotional intelligence and understanding that for themselves, but being able to see that this is this ongoing process and something that you're constantly having to work on, right? Because we talk about things like emotional intelligence and we talk about these things like it's a daily practice, right? And I love Brene Brown. I'm a huge fan. I've read all of her books. And, what I really love about her work and what she says is that what she's constantly talking about is that there's this idea of you are looking at these selves and you're working on these things and you're constantly moving forward with courage and heart, and you may fall down along the way, right? And so I want young people to really understand that it's not about learning all these things about yourself and then that's it, I'm done, I'm out the door, but it's really about being able to see that everything is a process. Everything is, a journey and a process and something that you're going through. And that right now, don't worry so much about like what the rest of your life is going to look like. Really think about and bring your world into a small place of what is it that I know? Like what I said earlier, like, what do I know for sure? And what do I want? What don't I want? And just recognize that each year you're going to learn so much about yourself that the goal is to be able to make better and better decisions for yourself, better and better choices, all of that. So I think that young people are much more aware of their feelings. It's just that they're not quite sure what to do with them.
Yeah, I love that. I found that in my brief experience. First of all, I just respect so much the work that you do. I got invited in to talk to these two sororities over the last few years of like 90 girls. And that was really my experience. Like they can say like, I got triggered by this, or I know that, my parents didn't talk about feelings, but yet they're still like, I don't know how to like set a boundary with this boy. I'm afraid if I tell him that I like him, he'll leave. I feel like I have to drink so that I feel comfortable to talk to somebody I don't know. Right. So it's like they can articulate it, but they still don't know how to implement their knowledge. And I think what you said about like, they have to really get to know themselves. And what a great message. Like, you're going to fall down, right? Like the only way you make those better choices every day is because you take that assessment that you're talking about and you're like that didn't go well. That doesn't mean I suck. It just means I'm a human. So how can I do it different? What a beautiful message. I so appreciate the work that you are doing in the world so that
thank you.
We can have a generation to come of happy, healthy people who don't go like, well, the pandemic fucked me up for life. Right? Because we all want like, I love, you have kids. It's like our parents wanted us to do better, and we just want our kids to do better. And I think they're an incredible group of humans. They just need people like you in their life. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And really quickly, and this is why I think that, the best time to start is now, is that why I love working with young people is that if you can make this investment in yourself now, like imagine what life would look like in your 30s, 40s, 50s. And that was really what I saw, especially for young women. I was like, imagine if we could, build, help young women be stronger and stronger. Imagine what we could do. And I love this idea of just being able to, right, just getting especially young women smarter, better, right? Building them up.
I love that. And I was thinking about this too, like we get so trained as women, and I think this is probably still true based on what you're saying, to produce, to perform, right? To like get A's, to get the best job, to get the best, raise, to get the salary, right? And all that doing, makes us lose focus on the being part, and what makes you happy and how do you feel, and putting all that emotional intelligence into play. And I think when we sort of put all those things in harmony, like watch out world.
Yes.
I love it. Tess, thank you so much for being here. Ladies, whatever age you are, life check yourself. You got to do it. All right. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.